Shalom, Israel. And when I mean Israel, I'm talking about the Black, Hispanic, and Native Indians. The Lord's 54th annual Passover is going down again this year, sundown, April 1st at 500 South Salisbury Street in Raleigh, North Carolina at the Downtown Conventional Center. It's got enough room for all of us. The Lord's 54th annual Passover.
Because here's what is also a crime, because having that history means that they know what the police do now. They know that the constant stopping, the constant questioning you, the constant where you going, where do you work, the constant that they know that this is the same. And it is a reminder of us that really we're not a part of this place. You know what I mean? It's a reminder to us that no, it's a separation. We might say integration, we might say slavery's over, but the psychological effect is still the same. And on top of it, because there's so much twisted mindset, because so many of us believe that we are free to a degree, when we run into that, encounter it, and like you said, it'll frustrate you after a while, and we respond to it. A lot of times we end up in a coffin by responding to it. And I know growing up in New York City, I tell the story all the time, constantly. It was a multi occasion weekly that you were stopped by the police in question, and people did get frustrated, and incidents happened. So it's amazing the tyranny that was on them. And as I'm looking out this window, if that's where you work, right there, that in itself is such a psychological game. You're in the house, probably you're in the house with 11 people. You get up in the morning, first thing you see is this. And after a while, you start, just like being in prison, you'll start to look forward to getting out of the house and getting into that field and working just to get your day going. You know what I mean? Since that's your only real hope, is to be successful in what it is. We probably became excellent farmers. Probably invented things and invented farm tools. It's crazy. It's crazy. This like this. Every black person in America, Latino, has to visit this. So if y'all come down April 1st, it's absolutely on. It's gonna be something to see. This is something to see. Now, what would really be, I know we can't do it, but what would really be deep is to spend a night in it. Get a couple candles and really feel this. Wake up in the morning with this joint on the sleeping bag. You will be like, no! Yo, son. Oh, man. Hey, fam, we over here, the Stagsville Plantation. And it is something to see. I mean, this coming down for the Passover this year, it's gonna mean more to you than ever before. Like, you're gonna experience Egypt and America's slavery at the same time. I'm standing in a plantation home. 10, 11 people in this one room. No glass on the windows, drafty as hell. I mean, it's drafty like I can't even explain. And all you got to look forward to is the plantation right outside the window. I mean, you talk about hell. These plantations was no different than being incarcerated and being in a cell. All you want to do is get out the cell and get out in the yard just to start your day in whatever way you would want. Because this right here is amazing to even have to go through this. And after a while, the mindset, and according to the tour guide, you go out the house and a random white man can come up to you anytime he felt like and just start questioning you. And it could happen anytime, and they used it as a tool of surveillance. I mean, we could go all into it, man. It's this. If you don't do this, then you shorten yourself on the history of what you and your people went through, and you beating yourself from really getting an understanding of where you came from so that you could really understand where you need to go. Let me tell you something. If you with a clear mind, you come and visit this slave plantation, you'll never pick up a crack pipe again.
That's right.
You'll never be a criminal again.
That's right.
You'll never not be responsible for your family, your children. You'll never be a degenerate or an alcoholic again. Like this is the most sobering thing you could come across, because this really happened. This ain't a show. This ain't, Barnum and Bailey circus. This really happened to your forefathers. And we talking 1,000 people packed up in there. In this one room, this the projects on a whole nother level. The projects totally on a whole nother level. You owe it to yourself, man. April 1st, everybody coming in from around the world, you got to join us on this one, y'all. You got to join us on this. I'm so glad I came out. Hey, to water to all you brothers, man, for bringing me out of here, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, I went from New York back to New York in the 1800s by just coming down here. You know what I mean? Amazing. I want to hold us up. I know we're on the tour. So,
they say they want to hear that raw shit. These niggas claiming that they bullshit. These niggas better move it cautious. As if they make the wrong move it cautious. You see me, they like, ooh, keep on stopping. I'm on my way up and they ain't gon' stop it. They say they want to hear that raw shit. I'm on my way.
And just a quick question for you. Is this another side or just like a separate?
No, this is an addition that was made onto this house over the years after the end of slavery.
Okay, so they just kind of put this into...
We focus on teaching about the history of slavery here, but of course the story of this place doesn't end in 1865.
This is true.
Many of the families who've been enslaved here after the end of slavery, they hoped for obviously more freedom and opportunity. They organized for citizenship and voting rights, and they especially in some cases spoke up about the need to have compensation for what had been taken from them during slavery here. And especially in a few cases, they described land as an important part of what could be. So some families here might have thought that the land of this place should be broken up and be theirs, right? They were the ones that had made this land profitable for so long.
Right.
But of course, that never came to pass. And so many families here, some agreed to sign sharecropping contracts and remain here as sharecroppers and tenant farmers. And sometimes they continue to live in these same houses, not just in the 1860s, but in a few of these houses into the 1940s or 1950s, right? And by the 1940s, there was only one family living in this house, so there weren't nearly as many people crammed into the building, but they were still living in the place where their ancestors had been enslaved. And the last family that lived here built this back room as a kitchen, so they had an indoor kitchen.
I know what
added on.
I know what I asked her. Where did they cook? Because I ain't seen nothing, no stove or nothing, nothing.
Right.
So
no,
just in the fireplaces with the hot coals inside there. In a lot of cases, especially in the heat of the summertime, people probably built fire pits outside and were cooking outside to keep the smoke, keep the heat out of the main, and obviously with such a cramped space,
you didn't want the
it made sense to do things outside.
Gotcha.
But by the decades after the end of slavery, slowly the last family that lived here, all those, almost 80 years later, they would have had a wood stove, so more of a stove to cook over that was in this building, and an indoor kitchen room.
Wow. To the 1940s, to the last family.
Boy.
That's where barbecue had to come from. They must have been barbecuing like crazy out here. Brisket must have been amazing. If they got brisket.
It was hard for people to get access to, and one of the first things we see happen after the end of slavery, when the United States troops arrive here and finally start to enforce this promised freedom, is we see families kind of rise up and take food for themselves, because for all these generations in slavery, that food had been rationed and limited, and of course there had been huge amounts of food being grown here,
but they wasn't eating.
But of course people didn't have free access to that. And so families are breaking open the smokehouses and they are killing animals and having fresh meat for themselves.
Wow.
Because for all those generations, it probably had been they were the ones raising the hogs, they were the ones raising the cattle, but they didn't necessarily, if they had access to that meat, it was probably, the worst quality
part you wanted to throw away, right?
Not
tripe.
Right.
Stuff like pig feet.
And so you see one of the ways that we can think about people celebrating their freedom here was sort of by feasting and having, taking that food for themselves. Yeah.
Wow. That's like the riots.
Yeah.
When they raid the supermarkets. This is deep. You know what I'm saying?
And I'll stay right on in that little house till the good Lord call me home. Then I will see Master Paul once more.
Dang.
Man.
Dang. That's all. Say he see Master Paul once more. Let's go, y'all. We have the radio. Come on.
Shalom, Israel. And when I mean Israel, I'm talking about the Black, Hispanic, and Native Indians. The Lord's 54th annual Passover is going down again this year, sundown, April 1st at 500 South Salisbury Street in Raleigh, North Carolina at the Downtown Conventional Center. It's got enough room for all of us. The Lord's 54th annual Passover. Last year, brothers and sisters showed up from all over the world, rocking ancient garments and glorious apparel in order to serve the Most High in Christ. Now, it's that time again. Commander General Yohanna's putting out the decree for all brothers and sisters to show up sundown, April 1st in Raleigh, North Carolina. Join us at the Sheridan in Raleigh, the hotel right downtown. It's at 421 South Salisbury. The Passover is right up the block at the convention center, literally within walking distance. Make sure you pull up. Make sure that you do your due diligence because rooms are going fast and they are limited this weekend. You understand? We have months in advance of preparation. Do not wait till the last minute to get your room. The Lord's 54th annual Passover, Saturday, April 1st in Raleigh, North Carolina. Join us there.
It's about